And we skipped over our August 13 meeting in order to attend the service for Mark Brumbaugh. And we're now meeting here on September 10, and we've made an update for the most part on the slide deck because news has shifted pretty quickly. And we have some, new information to share about the Inflation Reduction Act today, et cetera. So we've got the recording going. And today, I think we had a couple of things that we wanted to touch on. We have all of the news that we've compiled, and also we did a bit of work on the website. So I'm hoping that at the point of the presentation, we can talk about any news that we didn't compile a slide for, that people want to bring up, anything that's present. And then also, we can touch on a couple of the updates we made to the website, which keeps improving. Does anyone have anything to add to the agenda? Great. So I thought we'd start with introductions, and I was originally thinking about thematic introductions. We took a little time the last time, but it was kind of fun. This time, if anyone has memory of interacting with Mark Brumbaugh, I thought maybe I'd start today and let you know that Mike Newell, who couldn't be here today, and I attended his service, and just kind of got a chance to learn a little bit about Mark and how consistently nice he was in all the rest of his life, as well as the time that he spent with us at the NBEAA. And it was just so fun to hear about a guy who was excited about engineering through the course of his life. He did a whole bunch of work up in Alaska with the health system, Indian Health Services, and did all their facilities. He's probably put solar panels on multiple buildings, including his own home, and done work on his church and things like that. And so that was all just very nice to hear, and I was able to kind of convey a couple of the ways that he helped people through the NBEAA. He had recently gotten a Hyundai Ioniq 5, and we had a couple of requests for like, how can I go see one of these and kick the tires? And he helped those people. So that was just over the last few months. So my name is Sonia Carey. I'm president this year of the NBEAA, and I drive a Model 3. Shall I pass it to you, Jerry?
Why not? I'm Jerry Glazer. I'm still driving my 2018 Leaf. I thought I would drive it down here, but last minute decided to fly instead, as usual, because hopefully tomorrow, if the hurricane does not hit Caleb, I'm going to fly down, visit with Caleb, and he and I are going to drive down to the EV show in San Diego.
Oh, that's great.
And by the way, next meeting with the camera that I ended up buying, which I'm not really that sold on, maybe we can do a hybrid meeting out of my ADU. It's bring your own chair.
Great. So I'm just moving over the screen to David Heacock.
Yeah, I'm Dave Heacock in Fairfield. I'm still driving my converted A 1985 Avante. It's running good, except that the temperatures here have been like up to, I think, 113 or 14, and I have no air conditioning. So it's been kind of sitting for the last week, but it's supposed to have cooled down 21 degrees here today. So I'll start driving it again. I've been trying to drive it as much as possible. So.
Hey, David, try 10-inch walls. I put 10-inch walls on both the house and the ADU, and I don't need the air conditioning.
Yeah, well, I thought about a 12-volt fan and an ice bucket. That probably might work too. I don't know.
Yeah. Brad Morrison.
Hi guys, I'm Brad. I live in Santa Rosa, and I drive a 2004 Honda Civic Hybrid, so definitely not an EV yet. Although I have my reasons for sticking with what I've got. Spent an enormous amount of time just in the last week with the heat wave talking about electric vehicles because of I guess it was the Cal ISO's announcement to not charge your vehicle between 4.9, so that generated somebody's comment on Nextdoor in Santa Rosa and Sonoma County. They got like, oh, I don't know, 360 comments so far. So I invited a bunch of people to this meeting, though it doesn't look like anyone has shown up that I invited that I didn't know. So anyways.
For trying. Yeah, and thanks for engaging on Nextdoor. I noticed how civil you are. And you know, it's some work that you're doing out there, so I really appreciate it. Bill?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Bill Baldavich. We're since 2015 in the fall when we bought our Kia Soul EV. We've been extremely happy with that vehicle, and this end of the summer and this fall, we've been looking to replace it. And then the Inflation Reduction Act came, and that just made a total mess of trying to figure out what to do. But we did look at and drive a Volvo something 60 and a Chevy Bolt and a Kia Niro, and it's a mess to try to look at all the complications of buying an EV right now and trying to get another tax credit. Anyway, the Kia Soul, I can't say enough how beautiful that car has been for 7 years and still is, and still, but its main drawback is the 100 to 110 mile range from the beginning, and it's still doing that. And I think the complication for us is trying to find something in that size range, and there's nothing. The Chevy Bolt is the only one in that size range. And as I go around and to various places, even up here in Sonoma County, driving in and out of parking lots, parking spaces, blah, 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 trying to deal with all the big vehicles that are surrounding you. Anyway, that's enough. We look forward to a new vehicle sometime in the coming half year or a year.
Looking forward to hearing how that works for you. We've got some detail on it, which you're probably familiar with already. Caleb?
Maybe.
Yeah, Caleb Leonard. I live in Newport Beach, so down in Southern California. It's been quite hot here, and the conversation that I've been having about EVs, we actually been driving our BMW i3 more, and despite its 70-mile range, what we find convenient about is when we stop for something quick, we just leave the air conditioning running without having to worry about idling the engine. And we get back, and even though it's 100 degrees outside, we're nice and comfortable in the car again. So we've been really appreciating that. So yeah, so I have a 2015 i3, about almost 50,000 miles on it, and we drive that most of the time.
Bernie? Oh, Bernie, you're on mute.
You're muted. You're muted, Bernie. But we all do read.
Talked about this stuff today. Oh. Not yet.
I'm clicking the ask to unmute button to see if that prompts you, Bernie. Sometimes that's helpful. Still not working. We can come back to you, Bernie, and you can mess with that for a second. Bruce, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm Bruce Neiden, and I'm still up here on San Juan Island, but I kind of made a whirlwind decision, had an opportunity to change homes. So I'm about 12 miles south on the very southern tip of San Juan Island. My address is still the same, phone number is still the same, except the street address has changed. That's 163 Island Drive, in case you're interested. I have a great view through some trees, and I can see the ripping currents when the tides change between Lopez Island and San Juan. And because I'm in a neighborhood that probably doesn't want to have a blue truck in their driveway, and I had to clear my driveway because I closed on my other home yesterday at 3 o'clock, and the people actually came in early on the ferry, and I made the concession, okay, we'll move you in, looks like it's a done deal. So I spent the whole day helping them move boxes and stuff like that. A great couple, young couple, married during COVID, and this is their first home, pretty good starter home. But so I'm whittling down, and as you can see, I don't have enough hands to drive I think I still have 6 vehicles, and this was the biggest one. And so I hitched a ride down the hill. I was a little nervous because the truck had been sitting in my yard, and all I'd been doing is moving it back and forth, just to turn the wheels. And I've got a pretty steep hill. I was worried about shooting across this intersection. I talked this guy well, actually, he says he's hauled box trucks that have actually hung over the back further. So he's got a 12,000-pound Smith truck that I got from Thunderstruck, and it's still running, and it's going to get one more shot at becoming a community vehicle. So that's sort of a keeper. And then in my garage, I've got an e-Golf and a Model 3, and I'm going to keep the Model 3. The e-Golf is already got lots of offers. It's a perfect island car. I can haul more crap in it than anything else. So it's going to go soon. My Roadster, which was Alan's Roadster, has been in the Tesla shop down in Bellevue for 4 months now. And basically it's trying to get the replacement parts is an issue, but thankfully I don't have to stick that in the garage as well. The high school, I think, is solved. I think I got a message yesterday that they have a solution they think that'll get their Ford Ranger pickup going, that I purchased from Eugen Dunlap of Sacramento EV, and the rebuilt pod from Lanny Thomason in Eugene, Oregon, who has a huge collection of Ford Rangers. So hopefully that's going to be a done deal. And then I decided my second car, I'm going to get rid of everything except for 2 cars, the Model 3, and my brother down south, I can't reveal where he is, but managed to get his hooks into a fully loaded Ford Lightning F-150, and I'll be able to take possession of that at the end of December. So I'm excited about that, and I'll have something to tow stuff around with, and that's it. Sorry for the lengthy discussion, but I'm still here.
Well, maybe you'd like to come in January in your F-150 Lightning and do an in-person visit or something like that, Bruce. We've got a spare room. Let us know. Bernie, back to you. You go back on?
Yeah, no, I couldn't get the button to unbutton, the link to the button to undo. But anyway, nothing's changed with me, and still got my 3 in the Leaf, and still hoping to get a battery, but can't talk my wife into it yet. So anyway, that's my story.
Woody?
Good morning, all. Woody Hastings. I live just south of Sebastopol and still driving a 2013 Chevy Volt with a V as in Victor. That's me. Thanks.
I've just helped someone buy a Volt, the second Volt this year that I've helped someone buy. It's just the greatest used purchase, I guess. Both were older years, like 2013, 2012. Cecilia.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Sullivan, and I live in Ukiah, and I still drive my 2018 Model 3. It's at over 81,000 miles now.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Did you move? I thought you were closer.
I did move. Moving is hard. It's hot here. So
Yeah, it was a hot week. Because Cecilia has moved to Ukiah, we've claimed Ukiah as part of the NBEAA district that runs from Novato to Ukiah.
It runs from Newport Beach to
Yeah, it actually
Ukiah.
runs from Newport Beach to Ukiah.
Well, in that case, maybe it goes
That's
in San Juan Islands as well.
Exactly.
I don't know if we can claim London because our London member is not attended in a long time, but maybe we should just start saying Newport Beach to San Juan Islands. Yeah. Zeno, so last but not least.
Yeah, Zeno Schweiding. I live in Sebastopol. I think I have on the inside. I think it's 2014 or so. It's but it still does its thing, and I'm still happy with it.
Does it actually run? I haven't seen it move in the driveway in all the time I've known you.
Well, that's because you always come when I'm home. So
Good answer. Great. Well, chapter business. We have kind of an opportunity on this slide to check in. We got a recent request to change an email address from someone who doesn't regularly attend. So certainly the 150 people that we have on our club list, they're more active than you'd think. I also received a request from an individual as of my last notice saying, when can we get back together and meet in person? And this time it wasn't Ken Coker, it was someone I don't know. And so I'm going to reply to him based on, our discussions and be encouraging about that. So I'm excited that, there is a little bit of interest in staying engaged and that the 150 emails are not, completely dusty. The other thing I did was a month ago, more than a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I wrote to Elaine Borseth, the president of the EVA, and I asked her how to learn regularly what our balance is, because we have this plan to spend some money for hybrid meetings. And she said, oh, I'm surprised you think you have a balance. And I was like, well, we last thought we did. And she said, well, the financial person is vacationing right now, but you can write to her. And so I did write to her as well, and I haven't heard back. And so there's a little cloud of there's nothing known clearly about this, but I'm going to try to see if we can have that cleared up. But if you're at fully charged in San Diego, Jerry, and that's where I'm at right now. And I kind of understand that there are fund balances there. I guess we've got the screenshot right on the slide deck.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I had asked that question when I became president, and I got an immediate answer, which was, oh, the balance is this. The person who got the answer for me was, I didn't even do it directly. Our previous treasurer, whose name I just lost.
Ireland's Lisa Ireland.
Yeah, and so
she might know. Okay, well, she might know a better person to ask, but I thought I'd put everyone on notice about purchases. Let's clear this up and make sure we do have some funds to spend. So that's general member news.
can we go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
Let
me go back up. There we go.
Yeah, I noticed that we still have the old name there, Electric Auto Association.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe we can change that.
Yep. It's also a little pixelated. We can fix that. Okay. So the other thing I thought I'd check in on is that we've kind of converted to a format where we keep a permanent Zoom link that doesn't change, and we maintain it on the NBEAA.org site. So you can just go to the meetings page and click join Zoom from there. I send out usually kind of an update at the end of this meeting that includes links to the presentation and the PDF and the chat and that sort of thing. I think I'll keep doing that, and then I'll send the week in advance and the day in advance as well, just as email reminders to have at the top of your email. But let me know if you guys think it's noisy. That's 3 emails a month. That's all we've got, you know.
You know, and I sent those emails out as well. I mean, it's part of the one after the meeting I initiated. Alan was sending the other 2. And I appreciate those emails. The one thing I would suggest is that I would construct, you know, here's the links to such and such. And Cecilia has done such a great job of getting the website so that it has the information. Maybe as soon as we have stuff posted and the website updated, that the message goes out then and it says, go to the website, and we all get used to going to the website. 'Cause it was really easy to find things today, you know.
Yep. So we may not direct you directly to YouTube. We might just send you to our site where you can watch it directly there.
Or we put the link for the meetings page.
Yep. Sounds good. And then in addition to those 3 club emails that we'll send out, you know, obviously anything that's happening mid-month, just a reminder, send it to NBEAA discuss, anything that you want to have kind of a side discussion about, and anything you want covered in the meetings each month, you know, you can send that to the NBEAA team. We also have the other groups, press for media and web for our web group. Our web group's working pretty well. If you want to join the web group, let us know. If you want to get more active on the press side, let us know. The press side is not particularly active right now. Because we have the site all set up, I think I'm going to stop updating this slide because it's kind of like a little bit of extra work, and it's another link to the Google Drive area where we could just send you to the site. So, you know, obviously we've got the July meeting on the site, and we can have the PDF version available to people as well. So this leads us to October. Jerry mentioned that he's inviting us to possibly join at his new ADU. I think the idea here was that before we go live with a Thunderstruck meeting, we could have kind of, you know, a few of us who are interested go to Jerry's and set up in there, and then also make this more of a kind of a remote meeting or hybrid meeting where most people are on Zoom. And as such, it wouldn't be a fully public meeting where we invite everyone to Jerry's place. Is that accurate, Jerry? Do you think that that's the way
it's accurate? I mean, DJ will go nuts and the dog will go nuts with tons of people showing up, but the room itself is as large as what we had at Thunderstruck, and I have a fast enough network as far as I know, certainly faster than theirs. I have a projector. The other projector is sitting at Thunderstruck, but I have one that I think we can probably use. If somebody else has a projector, that'd be good. And I was thinking if we do a hybrid, we'll probably use 2 computers, you know. And I did buy that camera that David had sent out a recommendation on for $80, but compared to the quality of this camera, there is no comparison. Although it does do a 360-degree view, or 180, or a 120, or a speaker and 180, or a speaker and 360, and 2 speakers and whatever. So it does have some interesting aspects to it that we can play with. That might be a play meeting.
So,
but yeah, we have lots of room.
Can we maybe just ask for a show of hands right now who might be interested in being on site at Jerry's next month? So me and Bernie and Zeno, and that might do it, right? Caleb says he'll come. and
I
Brad,
have to loan you a plane, Caleb.
I think, Jerry, if we think that we'd have like a max of 5 people, that sounds reasonable. We can all give each other space and open a window.
That's no sweat, but then contact Mike and tell him to bring the donuts.
Oh, yeah. We could have donuts. That's going to make a few people jealous on Zoom.
The ADU has a microwave and a full kitchen, and there's
Yep.
beer in the fridge.
Oh, there you go. All right. If it's an IPA, I'm there. Okay, so I think we just covered this. If we do this right, we could take a step of getting to Jerry's and getting some of the hybrid issues worked out with a smaller subset of people. But I've heard in the past that people say, I love the idea of going to Thunderstruck. There's gear all around and so forth. So ultimately, that's where we want to go if we're still invited there. And so, you know, maybe within a month or two, we could get to Thunderstruck as well.
Yeah, and the fact that John hasn't been showing up to meetings lately, so I'm wondering what's going on. So
Yeah, yeah. So I've already kind of covered the gear and the caution update about the budget. We'll work that out and make sure that we've got kind of a clear path. This is our regular chapter goals update opportunity. You know, I think this is helpful to just kind of at least have the intention that we still have, that we want to be out there helping people understand the new Inflation Reduction Act and so forth, and doing tabling. When we last talked about this, you know, there were some grocery store tabling ideas that were very ad hoc. We decided Wednesday nights are not a good idea for some of us, but certain Saturdays might be. And I want to bring this back again, because I think the Inflation Reduction Act gives us a chance, you know, to have some simple conversations with people or very complex conversations with people. Any thoughts on this? Going into the fall, do we want to try for Santa Rosa Saturdays or Sebastopol Sundays?
I like the Apple Blossom Parade idea, but Caleb and I were in a parade once, and if we get the turnout that we had in the parade that Caleb and I were in, 400 EVs showed up. Now that was 8 years ago.
Well, it goes back 5 years, but we all participated in the Apple Blossom Parade, and Alan's Roadster, which is now Bruce's Roadster, was in it. Our Leaf was in it and stuff like that. And we had like about 10, but what was cool was we had an electric Baker 1914. Somebody in Sebastopol rolled something out of a barn that was, like it has those like big reel kind of batteries or something. A wrapped battery that you could just kind of visibly see. And it still worked, I assume. It didn't look retrofitted at all. So 400 would be a bit overwhelming for the Apple Blossom Parade, but 10 or 20 is always good. Yeah. So that brings us into 2023. So we'll keep thinking about that. Events and offers. News. So jumping right into the news, I think a few of these first ones are going to be Jerry's. This is our parent organization. We might have hit this one twice, I'm not sure. No, I got this just once. So the EBA just sent an email yesterday or this morning about their latest news. They have, like Jerry sent around a link that they've done a really nice video on the Inflation Reduction Act. They did a really nice article as well that's pretty easy to follow. And they did a countdown to Fully Charged Live. They've got a discount for entry at Fully Charged that's on their blog, so you can, but it's just a 15% discount on your entry fee. So
I think the entry for the day was like $25 anyway, so.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
if you want,
I think it's 40.
It's 40.
Yeah, okay. If you want your $6, go get that code. But also, if you guys make it, will you take a couple pictures?
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
we can't. Yeah, we're not allowed.
Okay. So jumping right into the Inflation Reduction Act. So originally I was just going to kind of post about, what was happening on the Senate floor while they were waiting for Kamala Harris to come in and make that tie-breaking vote and get this legislation moved forward. And that seemed like the dramatic news in the moment, but now that's history. And Biden has signed the Inflation Reduction Act. The big package, covers EVs, home decarbonization, home retrofits, ACA subsidies, and also health plan drug pricing, things that Caleb and I both love to hear mashed together. Basically it's a big package, and there were a couple of little pieces that were tweaked by Kirsten Sinema at the end that don't really affect the EV part. But as we'll notice, it has like a lot of, dampers on kind of a more pure rebate opportunity for EVs. There's a lot of kind of manipulation in it.
Sonia, just the jump in from that presentation, the one thing that I got from it,
Mhm.
the name of it being the Inflation Reduction Act,
Mhm.
a lot of the orientation is on financial, and the orientation on it is how to change industry in the US, how to simplify supply chains and a bunch of other things, but that impacts us directly as a consumer. And that's where all those complications turn out to be. If you get into the details, then there's some of them which I thought were really interesting.
Yeah, I guess when we get exasperated by the fact that each year the EV rebate rules change and that in some ways they go away. The upside is that basically we are kind of influencing manufacturers to come to North America and do their manufacturing, and we're influencing, materials providers to provide their materials through, countries that are, I don't know what the euphemism is for, like friendly countries, that sort of thing. So kind of skipping forward to some of this, and feel free to correct me or add the detail that is most relevant. I took kind of a high to mid-level view of what the EV credit was about. Certainly what Bill was mentioning is that there's a certain set of rules for this year that are kind of based on our current legislation. So, you can't get a rebate for a GM or a Tesla right now, but you can get one for a few other cars. And then everything's going to shift in 2023 and go by the Inflation Reduction Act rules, which means that GM and Tesla are now in play in 2023. But it removes some cars that are not manufactured in North America. And so you no longer see the Hyundais and the Kias as a potential for rebate because they're not manufactured in North America as of yet. And so this is the opportunity, is that I'm thinking that the manufacturing is going to shift, and that we're going to watch manufacturers jockey into position to qualify. And so the manufacturers with pure EV models that do qualify are just these 5 right here. There are some PHEVs, including the Audi Q5, the BMW 330e, which I guess gets manufactured here as well, the Grand Cherokee, the Pacifica, should be a comma there, and then the Volvo S60, which I am guessing is what Bill just drove.
To jump in on a couple of things in that. One was I checked to see if Kia had manufacturing sites in the US, and they do. And what they manufacture in the US are all their gas-powered vehicles. So you can guess that they'll start assembling and change the line so that they can bring the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 will both start. Hyundais will show up here as well. But one thing you didn't just mention was that 7,500 really isn't 7,500. It's really 2 different distinct rebates. One is a rebate based on how the battery is manufactured. The other one is based on where the vehicle's manufactured. Well, actually not where the vehicles, where the materials for the vehicle come from. It's the combination of the 2 of those, and both of those influence manufacturing to move back to the US. And sourcing of materials, for instance, where do the elements come from? Where's the lithium come from? Where does the nickel come from, et cetera?
And because that is split in half, I guess what we're going to find is that we should know in advance for 2023 and maybe for 2024 that some cars are going to have a 3,750 rebate and not a 7,500 rebate because
Right,
they have
exactly.
one of those two areas. I just couldn't fit it on the slide. But
But
yeah,
the other part, the other part I found interesting was that it is complicated. And they said, you know, even the stickers don't tell you what the discount will be. You'll have to check with the manufacturer, and the dealer won't even know until you look up the VIN and check all the details on precisely how that vehicle the one you're buying, not the model, but the one that you're buying,
in
like
your-
Teslas. Some Teslas don't qualify because of where the materials come from.
that's
and
something
so-
I should have brought up here is that,
Yeah.
yeah, it's down to a VIN lookup. But
Yeah.
if technology comes to the rescue, we're going to have a nice clean site that lets you type a VIN into the site and
Can tell you
you
what to
know
qualify for.
exactly right in the moment. Yeah. But I
The
think
place
that
that
also
that
no one
complication
knows right
doesn't show up is on the used vehicles, though. The used vehicles, if you qualify on the vehicle doesn't have to qualify all that much. You have to qualify it. But the other thing that in 2024 you don't have on the slide, maybe even have another slide. The
It's on the right
2020, because in 2024, there's one last rule change, and that rule change is that the dealers at that point
Mhm.
can accept the discounts and give you a less expensive car, and the complication is no longer yours. And I noticed that when I bought my last EV, this is my third that we bought, when I went to the dealer, every rebate and everything else and all the paperwork for that, the dealer filled out for me and just left the place for me to sign my name and mail it in. And so they started doing it. So I think in the 2024, we'll start seeing the dealers take it right off the top,
Mhm.
and the cost will be less to you. And that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, let me go down the right column really quick, just because we've got that at the bottom here. So, you know, there's a little bit of a difference between cars and SUVs, vans, and trucks. We've got the maximum price for a regular EV or a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle of 7 kilowatt hours or more that is going to qualify. It's going to be 80,000 for an SUV, van, or truck. It's going to be 55,000 for a car-sized car, and then it's going to be a max of 25,000 for a used car. And then you're going to have an income qualification step, which is, you know, your income based on new or used vehicle. Your income is going to be different. Qualification for a new vehicle versus a used vehicle. And then in 2023, you're going to have to file a tax return to get this money. In 2024, the dealer's going to take it right off the hood, and you're not going to have to think about it. So Brad, you had a question or a comment to add?
Yeah, Jerry, you had mentioned the, I guess, manufacturer getting the tax incentives instead of the buyer of the EV. The first thing that made me think of was Sonoma Clean Power's experiment with incentivizing the dealers in Sonoma County, and how I think I heard from you that didn't work out so well from their perspective. So that's one thing. Number two was what I understand about the used vehicle incentives that start, I believe it's like January 1st of 2024, is that you have to buy a used vehicle through a dealership. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a new car dealership, but it has to be a licensed vehicle dealer. So it can't be a private party to private party sale and get the incentives.
I thought that you could get the 7,500 off as of January 1, 2023, but you'd have to wait to get it off your tax returns, Brad. So if anyone wants to correct me, then
I was just speaking to the used vehicle component.
I believe that's
I
true
didn't
for
know that
used vehicles as well.
And that used vehicle starts in 2023? Brad's suggesting it start in 2024. I thought it starts in 2023.
I did too. So this is something where we might want to research it and just get it right for the next meeting, but it might be that you can get a used vehicle rebate in 2023, but the rebate itself will be coming off your tax return. So if someone wants to look that up. Zeno, question?
Yeah, I wonder whether, excuse me, in the law, is there any effort to make sure that the consumer gets a rebate? Because there's the dealer markup, And is the dealer going to capture part of the rebate by the whole market situation around EVs?
Yeah, I don't know that that's really being addressed. I think obliquely it might get addressed if we have more supply. It's kind of, it gets resolved through supply and demand that manufacturers will both pursue manufacturing in North America and qualifying through the battery materials. And then manufacturers, in addition to pursuing all of that, are going to compete with each other on price, hopefully. But I think it brings up your concern is that dealers might take this money for themselves, and that might happen in the early going until there's more competition. Because I don't know that there's anything that prevents that.
Yeah, I'd be curious if they have like a requirement for them selling at MSRP if they are to be eligible, because that would be one way for the law to be worded to support not taking advantage of the consumer.
Yep. I also thought that, like, say for instance, a Model Y might be about 60,000 base right now, and they might shoot for a version of a Model Y that qualifies, that gets down to that under 55,000, so that might be 54,900 or something like that. I think that those kinds of maneuvers are going to come up. Jerry, I think you were next.
Actually, I think David's next, but let me jump in just because Brad, the 2024 is not back to the manufacturer, that they take the money off at the dealer level. And Zano answered the question about, maybe the dealers are getting a better deal. The basic idea, I'm guessing, this is a guess, having looked at this, there's a real problem for dealers and the supply chain that exists today as EVs roll out. And I wonder whether in the IRA, what they're trying to do is make it so that dealers can participate and somehow make enough money to stay in business. And that was the only thing I want to add on to that. And Brad, the Sonoma Clean Power incentives, they just didn't see a lot of traction with that. It was successful, but they decided to move into larger vehicles after that.
David?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Is this a rebate or a tax credit?
It depends on the year. So it's a tax credit on your tax return in 2023, and then it's cash on the hood discount, immediate discount through a dealer in 2024 and going forward.
Well, and the reason for that, Sonia, is because the dealer then is using it on their tax return.
There you go. It's not your problem anymore in 2024. Yeah. Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, the experience we recently had in looking at possible purchasing in this quagmire, Brad hit it pretty well. He was talking about mentioning MSRP. Well, one of the shocking things is that the dealers who normally would not, on the sticker on the window of the car that's for sale, they are saying, here's all of the features and this is the MSRP. And guess what? We're adding $6,000 before you get anywhere. So I don't think adding that much to MSRPs was common practice. But now that I think the dealerships are seeing big advantages to the Inflation Reduction Act, but I don't think consumers are going to realize them that much. And again, I believe that the $7,500 that you were just mentioning before I spoke was, yeah, that's a tax credit. So if that's the case for a lot of people who don't owe money, it's not a credit for them at all. So it's quite exasperating with this new IRA and the time frames that we're going to see changing January 1st. And it's August 16th when things changed. It eliminated certain cars that we had in mind,
Yeah.
such as the Kia and the other Korean car, Hyundai.
So,
yeah.
I wonder, Bill, whether the dealers are going to start making adjustments as a result of that. The MSRP, that was one of the discussions, is it MSRP or the cost of the vehicle? And as far as they know, it's MSRP. One of the advices was, don't get things added to your car. I mean, if it's a special paint job and whatever else, buy the standard one then, or the chrome wheels, and then add those things later on as accessories after you've bought the vehicle, so the MSRP stays down. The other thing is the reason for the 2024 kick in, where the dealers can take the incentive and then pass it on to you, is precisely what you said. Well, they want to make sure they can target people who have enough income that could take advantage of a $7,500 tax deduction. It just wouldn't be worthwhile for a lot of people to take that tax deduction. And so in this case, they're hoping to keep the dealers profitable so that they'll take the tax deduction. And if that doesn't work, they'll do something else. I think the one thing, Sonia, that is interesting is that they set the rules up so that after January 1st of 2024, everything stays the same all the way up until 2032. And unless there's new legislation that reverses this, that's the first time that we have something that says it's going to be here for 8 years. And so they're trying to create a platform that they can't switch it overnight because the infrastructure, that is the financial infrastructure, doesn't exist there. So they gave it about 1.5 years to happen in 2024, saying, okay, we'll do it like this.
Yeah, I think, part of that kind of initial frustration about cars being marked up over MSRP right now, and the challenge of using this credit between now and 2024, it's going to put a little bit of a fog or kind of a bad feeling about this legislation in the early going. And I think that as advocates, we're going to have to take a real long view and potentially also kind of think about it more generally instead of specifically, because I think it's very painful right now to buy an EV. It's going to be pretty painful in 2023 to buy an EV, but hopefully a lot of different things are going to go in the right direction going forward. So, those parts of what you were saying, Bill, I think they're true. But as Jerry says, by 2024, your income qualification is all you need to worry about. You don't have to worry about whether you're paying $7,500 in taxes anymore. The corporation definitely has enough taxes to put it on their own return. Yeah, what else can we cover here? Because I think that there's,
there'll be a lot of additional cars out too in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Not only quantities of, will be increased, more of everything, and there'll be a lot more different varieties to choose from.
Yeah, I just heard that Honda's looking to open a battery plant. Maybe it was with Panasonic, and that was just something I didn't pull into our news, but a lot of examples of things moving into North America or shifting, or the factories retrofitting potentially. That's going to take some time. So yeah, I am a little concerned that the short term is going to be a lot of bashing on this legislation.
And it's not totally clear, and this is really not even a month into it since it's activated. And I thought the telling part was this: the EVA webinar, the presentation explaining the entire act, or as far as it has to do with EVs, took 17 minutes, and the Q&A lasted for another 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's lots of, and a lot of the answers were, well, we're not really certain yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm noticing, Brad, I don't know if you want to make any more statements about used vehicles, but this used vehicle opportunity, it's really interesting to me. Like, I think the sweet spot is if you can find something between 22 and 24,000 bucks. That's like a, you know, a Nissan Leaf, Chevy Bolt, or something like that. That's a few years old.
Mhm.
You can get that $4,000. And so that's a really interesting sweet spot. The other one is no one kind of said anything about the plug-in hybrid qualification yet, but that was not contemplated early on, that, you know, you could go out and get a Chrysler Pacifica hybrid and get a full 7,500 bucks off of it.
Can you? I thought I read that you couldn't do that. You can do that?
You can do that. So if it's made in North America, if it's the Audi Q5, if it's the BMW 330e, the Grand Cherokee, the Pacifica, the Volvo S60, all of those fully qualify for $7,500 because they have a 7 kilowatt hour battery. And so there's no extra push for a pure EV.
Yeah.
But whoever gets one, I hope they plug it in. I think that might reduce some of the burden, like on supply. But Brad, you had another comment?
Oh, yeah. In regards to I mean, I've been paying much more attention to the used vehicle incentives than the new ones, just because that's what I'm more interested in buying. And I do have some thoughts about that. I actually was hoping that John Palmerly would be on here because, and I've mentioned this before, I don't know of a single used vehicle dealer in the entire North Bay region that specializes in electric vehicles.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
thought this legislation might actually push that. And I thought Thunderstruck might be interested in that possibility. I was hoping to pitch John, or he could pitch Brian on it. I mean, I've thought about starting up, and I took the auto dealer course from the guy who teaches it at the JC. It's pretty short. It's like an 8-hour course, and then you pass a DMV test. I mean, it's pretty a simple process to become a wholesale used vehicle dealer. Becoming retail is, you know, more involved. But it's, I don't know, it's just not the direction I'm in right now. So it would be a shift for me individually to do it. But I just hope somebody does, because it would be nice to be able to refer someone to, you know, who is interested in electric vehicles to basically like a salesperson who was doing it full time. And I've heard that complaint from many people trying to buy new electric vehicles, that the salespeople they interacted with at the various new car dealerships were just not very helpful, not very knowledgeable. There was only one guy there at the entire dealership, and he was off that day, or, you know, all sorts of other complaints.
No, but I see this legislation as being something to incentivize dealers, today's dealers, into taking on that role. And I think that's what they were trying to do.
And I'm assuming that online dealers have some advantage in terms of the volume of their inventory. So a Carvana or something like that. David?
Yeah, I'm wondering just how much Redwood Credit Union, you know, they have a used car lot down on Santa Rosa Avenue. I mean, they've had a Model X and a Model 3. They had multiple Teslas and other EVs at times that I've looked there. So, but I haven't interacted enough with their sales staff to know how specialized they are.
They seem to bring in the types of cars that people want, and so that's a great idea. Yeah.
Well, their pitch is, I mean, you want anything, you go in and tell them what new car you want, and they'll go out and deal with the dealers and bring it in at a price. You know, they'll create the competition on your behalf.
Yeah.
I have never done it with them, but I took note when they told me that.
That's great. So if no one else has a comment on the Inflation Reduction Act, I was going to move on to the state of Massachusetts. Oh, okay. I guess I was going to give you a sneak preview of, I'd really love to cover this or have someone else cover this for a future meeting, but there are so many retrofit opportunities inside the Inflation Reduction Act's, I guess they call it the Homes Credit. But I don't even know if I have everything listed here, but the thing that really caught my eye is you can get money to upgrade your power panel, and you can get money to bring the wiring over to the place. I don't know what the better words might be, but wire up in position, for your mini split or your water heater or whatever it is that you're trying to put in as electric.
This is going to work well with Title 24 and the 2022 version of it, which requires, for instance, in California,
Yeah.
if you put it gas, you have to run all the wires anyway.
Mhm.
And you
And
have
some
to
of
upgrade
that-
the panel so that the wires would function, things like that.
Yep. So stay tuned and let us know if you're interested in doing some of that research. It's really fine, fine detail, I think. Great. So before the Inflation Reduction Act passed, I was tracking this Massachusetts legislation, and I'm from Massachusetts, so I was a little bit interested, and I thought, I could get some family interested. None of them have EVs. They signed into law a $5,000 EV rebate, or $6,500 if low income qualified. They're also limiting sales in 2035 to only zero emission vehicles. They've got a bunch of utilities and solar and wind stuff in here. They're finally getting some wind power put out offshore. And my own personal comment is that the state of Georgia had a big $5,000 rebate back in 2012 and sold a whole bunch of Nissan Leafs to people around Atlanta, because you could get that $7,500 credit federally, and then that extra $5,000 in the state of Georgia. So that was $12,500 off of a car. And so I think the state of Massachusetts is going to be one of the few states that kind of, has that extra couple thousand in there. That's going to be a really sweet deal. So I'm curious if they're going to just really accelerate there. Jerry?
Two things. One was I used the Georgia example in presentations, I don't know if here or other places, because as you said, they had this and their EV ramp was really fast, and then they removed it. And there was a 97% drop in EV sales in the following year. It was quite amazing as how much influence this has, and that really surprised me. I wanted to ask Woody a question, because in California, relating to this, but his face isn't even there, so I don't know if we just have a sky now.
I stepped away.
So hopefully he hears this. But the question is this, is that something happened recently this week in California, and I wanted to know whether it's in legislation or in regulation. The executive order that we discontinue selling EVs cars in California by 2035 was in place, but something else happened in the last month, and I think it might now be in regulation. I'm not sure it's in legislation or not. I didn't know what the difference might be, but he doesn't look like he's there.
Yeah. Woody dropped a document in the chat and asked the same question, Jerry. And I can't recall if I last month had a slide on the California legislation. But let's circle back to Woody if he comes back on, and let me see if I have anything else on it. No, I think I'm at this point, we're kind of stepping into some of our general transportation slides. Do you want to pick this up, Jerry? And then we'll come back to California legislation.
Yeah, I have to look at it because it's so long ago that I sent everything to you. Yeah, one of the things that we're just starting to see in EVs is pickups, and I have lots of friends who ask about pickups as well. In fact, I had the final sign off on my ADU, and Steve Brown, the building inspector in Sebastopol, came by, and he was talking about his pickup, which he has on order, the Ford 150. And he's hoping he'll get it sometime in the next 2 years, because the rate at which the vehicles are being produced. I've had contractors come to me also, and we see it right here, saying, I want an electric pickup. And they kept looking for it because 280 miles a day, you get to the job site, the pickup sits there, you leave the job site. Friends of mine who are contractors, they do jobs in Sonoma. So they have to drive to Sonoma and back again. It's still not 280 miles a day. So it's really not an issue. And it turns out that even without the incentives, the total cost of ownership for contractors having a pickup with a spare power and everything else turns out to be less expensive than a gasoline powered vehicle.
So they're more likely, do you think they're more likely to do that 5-year analysis and have a better understanding of the fact that total cost?
Just the fact that they don't have to plug into a panel to get some electricity, or they don't have to have a compressor, or sorry, a generator running on site to run their compressors. All of those things are going to start making more contractors. But the other thing was in the US, the most popular vehicles sold in the US, light vehicles, are pickups. Now, I don't understand why that is, because even people in the city, hey, a lot of you live near Sebastopol. How many pickups are in Sebastopol? And how many people actually use them as a pickup? My neighbor has the pickup plus 2 cars. He drives the pickup all the time. So take the kids to school.
Yeah. You never know when you're going to see a chair on the side of the road you like.
Yeah. Anyway, so pickups will dominate the EV market is what the forecast is, as they have the gasoline powered market.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet they're big in Ukiah. Oh, one other thing I just wanted to mention.
Wait, I see Cecilia's note. Yeah, you're in Ukiah, Cecilia.
Another thing to mention to contractors is that as they move away from compressors to battery powered, as they move away from a lot
generators, they'll still have compressors.
To generators, they'll still have compressors, and those are allowed. Well, my point was going to be that they could try to avoid tinnitus, because a lot of people that I talk to that get into EVs that are in the trades do so because they end up getting ringing in their ears, and they're trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of those hydraulic, I've used the hydraulic guns. And yeah, they're loud. You should have hearing protection on them all the time.
Yeah. This is our opportunity to kind of track, other than Tesla, what's actually getting sold. And I think it's kind of, our opportunity to see if there's any throughput at all, if any of these vehicles are being delivered. The Mach-E sold 4,970 in July, and then another 3,120 in August. And so they've gotten 25,000 out, year to date.
It's not a lot.
It's not a lot. I guess they'll hit 40,000 in the year, something like that. It's not a lot yet. It's the most. So at least it's the most that we can track. We've got very small numbers on the Lightning so far, and the Ioniq 5 and the EV6. So we'll keep looking. I'm hoping that we'll see more throughput.
There was a report years ago that talked about the profitability for auto manufacturers. And for a given model in a given year, the number that they use saying we break even at 250,000 units a year.
Oh, that's really good to keep in mind. Yeah, Ford's going to need to do a little better. They'll hit that with the Lightning eventually. Yeah. Who put this one out?
I did the slide. This, and because this is a question, I think, David, you asked this question about Tesla. And so I did a little bit of research on it. Tesla's already doing this in Europe. And they're now starting to do it in the States, and they have a letter of agreement with with the US government, with the White House, to start supporting superchargers for other formats. So instead of just the Tesla format, certainly for SAE, I don't know if they'll bother doing CHAdeMO, because I don't think CHAdeMO goes above 50 kilowatt. And everybody's trying to push for 350 at the stations. So Tesla actually even took one of their plants, designed a new station, and are now manufacturing those stations out of Buffalo. And it's to support part of the EV rollout that the government's been pushing. And they've had a pilot, according to the slide deck, which I put together, since last year. The thing that's interesting about it is that Tesla put the network in place in order to sell their vehicles, to make their vehicles popular. And a lot of people that I talk to, and you Tesla owners can say it's true or not, it's because Tesla has such a great network. I bought a Tesla, and it's a great car, but I can go any place because I can find a Tesla station any place, and it's high powered, which wasn't true always for CHAdeMO, certainly, or SAE. But at this point, I think they're looking at it as a profitable business. So it'll be interesting to see how they structure it.
They also just a couple days ago put out a call on Twitter to ask for crowdfunded ideas for new site placement. And so I kind of scanned through that, and I saw Northern Montana, like there's a section of Northern Montana, there's, areas around national parks. And there's like, people were able to say there's a little zone here that's not covered well. And so I think they might have gotten some good data. I don't know if they are.
This was Tesla that put that out, Sonia?
Yeah, it was Tesla. And
I'd love to do Highway 50, through Nevada and stuff. And they have no chargers at all along there.
I think
for a friend, I looked at Highway 395 because she wanted to go from Southern California up to Lake Tahoe. And there's 2 SAE DC chargers along the way. That's it.
I think they were asking for ideas, and then they're going to put it to a vote. So the vote might be more broadly distributed, and you might get involved in that, Bernie. So it was like kind of give us some ideas, and we'll take your top ideas and put them to a vote.
So this was off the Tesla website someplace, because I would.
No, it was on Twitter. It was on
Twitter. An official document. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a question. Technical question. You're displaying through the Google presentation. Does it allow support full screen?
Yeah, I was actually going to put our faces to the right, and so I was messing with it. I guess I should have done full screen.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'll leave it alone for now.
Okay.
So Walmart EV strategy. This one's yours.
I put this one together too. So they're not the only ones. Walmart and a lot of the big box retail are now putting together vehicles. In this case, look at the vehicle, and I keep maintaining the electric vehicles can ultimately look differently than gasoline powered vehicles. And we start seeing some of these like these vans. They have a deal now for 5,000 vehicles from GM. And I can't remember if these were self-driving or not. But FedEx has deals now, Amazon, UPS, and they have deals with multiple companies, not a single one. So this is a large change. And the percentage of GHGs out of delivery vehicles is a large chunk of the vehicle portion, and it's the fastest one to change. So I think we're going to start seeing more and more of this. Anyway, it's part of Walmart's net zero neutral goal. And they're going to include hydrogen, and they're using natural gas right now too, but they'll move away from it as time goes on.
I want to see one in person, that's for sure.
Yeah, it'd be interesting when these things start showing up.
What was that LD the lifestyle? What
Yeah,
is
it's a
that?
life. Yeah, brand. It's a lifestyle
I
delivery.
think it's
vehicle.
life is good. I think that's it. Life good. I've heard. I don't know.
Oh, maybe they're using LG for batteries, but I think this is something that they've come up with themselves.
Yeah.
Is that the front or the back we're looking at?
Right.
It's the front.
Yes.
It goes in both directions.
It doesn't. Brad, you had a question?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I threw a link in the chat to something I found a couple weeks ago about an open source electric vehicle platform. I mean, I'm into open source software and I use Linux on this computer, and actually the picture that is on this slide of the delivery van kind of reminded me of some of the designs that they have on that Open Motors site, and so it reminded me of that. So I was trying to think also about what Jerry had said about how the auto manufacturers say the break-even point, I'm trying to remember how you put that, is 250,000 sales of a particular model annually. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that was the number that was in an article.
So one of the ways that I've seen of lowering, kind of barriers to market entry like that are through open source technology, where the technology designs are shared and can therefore be used by lots of smaller manufacturers. I mean, autos are a little bit different than software, obviously, in part because there's all sorts of fixed costs. I mean, you basically have hardware costs and cost to manufacture things and electricity and all sorts of stuff. That's just far more than when it comes to software. But it does have the potential, because there are fairly few auto manufacturers in the world. I don't know what the safety requirements are like for new vehicles in terms of what it takes to get a new vehicle to market in terms of approval from regulators at the federal level. But I don't know, maybe if you could get like a open source design for a heat pump or something and have like components and have that used by several auto manufacturers, maybe that would increase interest in it.
And Brad, the reason it doesn't work is that essentially, and Caleb will probably substantiate this, the automotive industry basically is an industry of assembly. That is, the parts that you find in the vehicles. My cousin years ago, back in the 1970s, taking apart my Datsun 610, and he said, "Shit, it has a Mercedes engine in it." Okay, the carburetors. Everybody bought the carburetors from the same 2 or 3 manufacturers. The electrical components come from the same 2 or 3 manufacturers. So basically, they don't reinvent that. What they reinvent is the design and the assembly. Tesla has been working its way up the stack. I mean, this has been different in the EV market compared to the traditional market. For doing delivery vans, in delivery vans and stuff like that, they, of a given model, the most they might sell will be the UPS, and it might be 7,000 a year. So they had to already do what you're saying. That's precisely how to get the cost down. But I never understood quite why it was, but I think it might have to do with the way they make the chassis and things like that. But you can imagine how much the vehicle design gets fixed once you say the chassis has to look like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I've heard that a lot of the major auto manufacturers use the same, not only components, but designs of chassis and other major parts in that same way to reduce costs across multiple models.
Hyundai and Kia did that.
Zeno?
Yeah, I wonder how these terms are defined, like net zero, carbon neutral. Are there good definitions of it? For example, Sonoma Clean Power has evergreen. It's 100% renewable, but it's not net zero. It's not carbon neutral because there's some carbon used in the hydro up north here in the county. And so the embedded energy in these vehicles, is that part of the plan to compensate for that in some way? I see there's natural gas as a strategy for carbon neutral hydrogen. Is that made from natural gas, or is it made in some other way? I think that there's a need for like understanding and making these terms more sharper so that we kind of know where we're aiming for.
Does anyone know if a retail organization that claims they're going to go carbon neutral is following a certain standard?
I think, Zeno, no such thing exists today. And I think you're right that somebody's gonna start asking the question.
Mhm. David?
Right, that's where we have some power, is to ask the questions. That I'll tell you, the carbon footprint thing locally here that I've been trying to get a handle on is the county doing a plan for Sonoma Developmental Center. And they talk about the garbage per year produced by the 2,400 residents they visualize, but they don't talk about the fact that they plan to demolish over 1 million square feet of existing buildings and send that to the landfill. And that's and the fact that the alternative would be to reuse buildings because it takes, American Institute of Architects is very clear on the fact that it takes decades for a new building, a platinum LEED building, to really break even because of the carbon footprint of new construction. And we have a county bureaucracy that's just ignoring the fact that tearing down 1 million square feet is somehow a low carbon footprint activity by building new stuff. That's rather frustrating that Zeno, if you want to hold somebody accountable, it's the county that needs to be really laid into for what they've been proposing for Sonoma Developmental Center.
Yeah. And I wonder also if generally when we're talking about some of these advances that companies want to make, that we're dealing with low-hanging fruit in the early years, but then things become very complex. And you need to kind of take into account, all the actions and do the calculations in a consistent way, I would imagine. So moving forward, EV impact by 2025. I love watching this stuff because they have to keep updating, their guesses. And so I don't even know if there's some good number crunching related to how is the Inflation Reduction Act going to affect things. I've been seeing that, state of California EV sales is running about 12%. And so
I put this slide together.
Okay. Go for it.
And I put 2 links on here too. I don't know why the second link didn't show up as a link, because I did more digging as well. Bloomberg basically said this: if you look at all the technologies that have occurred in the last 40 years, once you get a 5% adoption rate, at that point, you very quickly move to a 25% adoption rate within 2 or 3 years. We saw this with cell phones. We see it with laptops. We saw it with other things. The internet. And so theirs was just based on the math and what was happening. So then I dug a little bit further. And I don't know if I have it on this slide, but in the Bay Area, in this last year, 27% of new car sales were EVs. Across the state of California, over 5% were already EVs. Actually, it's 5% across the country. across California, it was some double-digit percentage.
It's
Like
about
Uh,
16% right now.
Yeah, and so the indication is that the ramp now will be very, very fast. The reports that we saw last year that we showed up in our deck saying that by 2027, 50% of new car sales would be electric vehicles. That came out of Sandy, Monroe, and a number of other places. I think we're going to blow right past it. And that's what the numbers are starting to show. And the only thing that will keep us from getting there is supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it also means that we're going to have other issues and other complaints, like Brad was talking about at the beginning of the hour. We've got a lot of people who think that electric vehicles bring down the grid because the grid is being brought down, where it's kind of the opposite, right? Electric vehicles can avoid prime times really easily, etc. So, I'm kind of thinking that we're going to have some new issues.
And I did do one slide on it, and I'm going to dig further into it because there's an initiative here, and I've been talking to people at PG&E who are responsible for their program on VGI. The utilities are pushing because they want the vehicles plugged in because they want to get the energy out of the vehicles when they want the energy out of the vehicles.
Right. Yeah. We've got both Davids up here. David Heacock, did you want to go next?
Yeah, Gary, you said the restriction might be the supply chain. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Well, I guess my question is, were you going to talk about, or do you know anything about the issue with, particularly in this Inflation Reduction Act, the issue with not having enough materials like lithium to meet all these goals? I mean, there was an article in Inside EVs, which was a discussion with a CEO of Piedmont Lithium. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Well, and he's somebody in the forefront and, building a facility here in the United States. And he talks about, the facts that I guess under that act by, 2026, which isn't that far away, you're going to need 80% of the critical materials sourced here in the United States.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is that, and some other people have kind of mentioned this, that based on just permitting aspects, it takes, a minimum of probably 2 years, but more like 6 to 8 years, I guess, to get a facility permitted. So somewhere along the line, what he's saying, based on just the lithium aspect, we're not going to have enough materials to support, what they're trying to do here with electric vehicles. It was an intro. It has quite a few, and like it says at the end of the article, I mean, this is a guy that's working on putting a plant together. I don't know whether it was in Kentucky someplace or whatever, but
don't you think that a lot of things will change as a result of the need and of the government push? That is, that the government says we're going to be doing these things. One of the presentations I thought about putting together was on an article I read that talked about where can we get lithium from? What are the sources of lithium? We basically source lithium one way today. There's 6 or 7 different methods that are known to get lithium. It's a fairly common element, but the cost for producing lithium is higher in all the others. And so nobody's bothering to do that because the lithium, until the EV showed up, was a very small market. I mean, it's used as, for our cell phones, whatever else, small form, and used in some lubricants. And today, 95% of the lithium which is consumed worldwide is going into vehicles. So you can see the difference. And I've looked at the value also. I don't know if I did a slide on this time. The value, that is the cost of lithium and what's happened to it over the last 10 years. It's gone up by large double-digit increase in the value. So at that point, the other methods of producing lithium now become cost effective. And so he's right as far as it'll take us a while to figure out the production portion of it. But having worked in government, when you find out the government is getting in the way, government, if it really is serious about something, finds a way of getting out of the way. And so those things are there. And I bet you that some of them start getting cleared.
Yeah, they also say that if you think that the problems that government creates, are a real issue, wait until you see their, solutions to the problems that they've created. So I work for the federal government and state government, and I'm sure a lot of you have, and it's pretty amazing sometimes. I don't know what they're going to do, like in California or any of these states where permitting is such a hassle to get anything done. And you were talking about taking buildings down and sending that to the dump and everything, and then putting a new build. I mean, how long is that going to take? I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. And if the requirements are by 2026 to have 80% of the materials here, is that really even possible?
Well,
even with them,
one of the things,
because you're going to have
one
to
of the
get
things
rid of
in the-
all this permitting crap.
yeah, one of the things in the presentation was there's amendments to the act that are expected in December in order to take care of those things which are not feasible.
Yeah, it's called a forcing factor. But I would just be a bit skeptical of articles that say things can't be done. I think that we're gonna, if it can't be done, then we're gonna have a forcing factor and we're gonna have a modification. But yeah, it's
Well, I don't think he's saying it can't be done. He's just being realistic about what they're up against. And unless they change the rules, I mean, you look at the earthquakes that happened in Los Angeles years ago, putting back together a freeway. They said, well, hell, this is going to take years. And somebody decided, let's give them an incentive to get it done faster, and it got done. We can do it. The question is whether government's going to get out of the way. I mean, that's the question. I don't have no fear about we can do this kind of thing. That's not the problem.
yeah.
When industry wants something done, government manages really quickly to accommodate them. That's my take on it. I mean, I've seen a few examples, but
Yeah. David, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I've been in the last month surprised by two bits of technology that have been, people have been working on for years, but I hadn't heard about it. And one is to produce hydrogen from natural gas, but it doesn't produce CO2. It produces, carbon black. And so you've got a solid, able to produce hydrogen from natural gas without releasing any CO2. And that was a complete surprise to me. And the other thing is the fact that people have been working for years on deep drilling to access the heat of the earth, drilled at 20,000 feet or more. And you could do that at any existing thermal plant that is using, steam to generate electricity. You wouldn't have to tear the plants down. You just need to drill a deep hole there and access that heat to run the steam turbine and displace any fossil fuel that's currently being used. And if those two kinds of technology really become economically feasible, some of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions become, not just something that you think is impossible.
David, to that one, in one of the reading clubs I'm in, sometimes we have readings, sometimes we have speakers, and one of our speakers was the past CTO of one of the terrible oil companies, who has been talking about exactly that and saying we should be using the oil wells and that are spent, and we should be pumping the heat out, and we don't need to go 20,000 feet down. We can go 5,000 feet down, and that's cost effective to do. And he's been on that for quite some time. And that is any place in the world. They're actually piloting that in the UK right now in some of the wells.
So this is a little far afield, so I'll just kind of move us back to our slides because I have a feeling we've got a bunch of stuff here. Oh, and you had a build on this. I'm sorry, Jerry.
Yeah, oh, okay, sorry, but I went through most of that stuff too. Yeah, having the numbers in front of me would have been a lot easier.
There you go. There's your 16% in California, which matches Switzerland, which,
Yeah.
can make us feel
I
better.
think the curious one was that 50% of the EVs sold in the Bay Area were Teslas.
Availability.
Yeah.
EV market continues to explode. I think you put this
I
one
did
together.
this one too, this slide. This one is just the general article that was talking about growth year to year, and that EV sales have continued growing at a fairly substantial rate. 66% is a substantial rate. The curious part out of the article was that hybrids, plug-in hybrids and fuel cells, they're growing, but they're not growing as fast. And fuel vehicles actually aren't growing. So we've gotten to a point where the manufacturers recognize they need to make something different.
Mhm.
Average cost of an EV surprised me, $67,000. I don't buy cars that are $67,000. So
Yeah,
And
my
price-
$35,000 Tesla is really far from anywhere that exists
Yeah.
today.
although
but-
with the dealers adding what they're adding,
Yeah,
you can get there.
yep. American Airlines buys 50 eVTOL aircraft. There's probably a few things going on here. We've been seeing quite a bit.
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
we-
you can tell I did this one too. I get a lot of newsletters from, and this isn't electric newsletters, I'm getting newsletters from aviation groups. There's over 200 different companies that are developing EVs. What I find intriguing about the aircraft, number one is United, American, they've already made orders and they've invested in companies that are doing essentially alternative designs on aircraft to satisfy a market that they really haven't been able to tap cost effectively. It costs $400 airfare. You can fly from Santa Rosa to San Francisco. The airfare is $400. I don't know if that's one way or round trip. Now I can get to LA for less from Santa Rosa. But this whole thing about shuttling, and what I really find intriguing about the aircraft is this: 95% of them don't look like anything I've ever flown before. They don't look like helicopters, and they don't look like aircraft with wings. There's something different, and they're taking advantage of what you can do with electric motors. And they're modifying the motors so that the motors are an entirely different form of motor that has higher efficiency and lower weight. Because we were talking, Zeno and I were talking about weight versus payload for vehicles and what we should do with that. And then so I went looked at my Cessna. The weight on the Cessna is 1,700 pounds and it carries 800 pounds. The weight on my Leaf is 3,700 pounds and it carries 150. So most of the time. So you look at that and you say, geez, the ratios are different.
Yeah. Brad, you had a question.
Yeah, Jerry, I think I heard you right that you said there were 200 companies making these aircraft. So how is that possible? I mean, I guess they're just not making money.
No,
When
they're
you
all
were talking about the auto manufacturers having a volume needed of what,
they're all in
250,000
development.
annually.
They're all in
Okay.
development. Okay. The reason that you haven't seen anything in production yet, the Federal Aviation Authority actually had no way to certify the aircraft because they don't have a standard for electric aircraft. And so they've just finished that in the last 6 months or so, where they can actually look at something. Okay, fine, this one's certified. There's electric aircraft coming in from Europe that are being used in Europe. And I know of one guy on one hangar has 4 planes, has been there for 3 years. He can't use them for training because he couldn't get them certified yet in the production aircraft. The one thing that you will find is this: they're all going to be in high cost areas. So this is Uber had a division, Lyft had a division. They've now since sold those to other companies, but they now have contracts with those companies to have the vehicles. Most of them are pilotless, but they'll all have pilots to start with.
Well,
We-
this would be an interesting video presentation if you could show us vertical takeoff and landing.
They're amazing to watch. Yeah.
Nova last year had had an hour show on all of the
Yeah.
new electric airplanes that are being developed.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
And they're mostly being done here.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in this area, because they're basically software engines. I did this slide too.
Uh-huh.
This was just interesting. That I went to one bank website and it popped up and they had a full explanation about EVs, buying an EV, different kinds of EVs, why you would select one versus the other. And I just thought it was interesting. And try this link later on and didn't see it because they actually had a buying guide. You answer questions, you answer 10 questions, and it says, hey, you might want to look at these particular vehicles based on your need. It's very well done. This is through Chase.
I can think of one motivation the bank would have. The $10,000 over 5 years that you save in gas gets financed by the higher price of the car.
Yeah.
So if they could get you into a bigger loan, they can make more money off you. I'm trying to think of why do they care?
But the other thing I found interesting on this site with Chase, you put in your zip code and they've done the research for your zip code of where you can file to get incentives.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I guess
So that was cool.
maybe the other reason to do it is just barrier to getting a loan. You know, they don't want to be left out and have Carvana make all the loans.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. Google Maps offering support by type. I think I used this. Did you put this one together, Jerry?
Did I? Hang on a second.
Oh. You marked it general transportation, so I'm guessing you might have has your name.
Oh yeah, it would be me. Yeah, sorry. Well, that was just an announcement that came through. Also my Android, it now gives traffic, so I don't have to subscribe to all these other things. And estimated toll pricing was the one that I thought was interesting. Actually, that's been on mine for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But you tell it the vehicle that you have and what Google's working on now, saying, well, here's the best route for a Leaf, or here's the best route for a Tesla, where's the best route for a Bolt, based on what your range is, what your charging speed is, what your form factor is for the charging, other things like that.
I've always wondered about Stony Point versus the little grade at Petaluma. EVgo growing fast charge network.
This is the deal between EVgo and GM with over 2,350 kilowatt fixtures. I put in the word fixture because they'll be at 500 locations. They have more than one fixture at a location. And I had to look these things up because I saw Pilot and I'm thinking about flying. Well, Pilot is the name of a fast food chain, as is Flying J. I looked at where they're actually located. They're really heavier in central, eastern, and southern states, not so much out here, although they are here in Southern California. And they're trying to build out now. EVgo is trying to build out, do the Tesla thing, but do it with EVgo. I've had a lot of good luck with EVgo with Chatamo. I mean, they tend to work and they tend to have higher power. In GM, jumping into this is good. I can mention here one other thing, goes back to mentioning GM, was that GM's now buying out all of their Buick dealerships. So I'm wondering if GM's now looking at it and saying, okay, dealers are not going to work all that well in the future. So maybe we need to do more of the Tesla model and figure out how we have less dealerships and we run more business into less places.
Is that just for Cadillac or all GM dealers?
That was, the article was about Buick. It wasn't about Cadillac.
I think it was consistent with the same thing was around Cadillac, though. Maybe that's what you're remembering.
Yeah, I'm a Cadillac, but that could have been Buick too.
The other thing is they're making new requirements of these dealers. They're saying you have to have certain amount of training, a certain amount of EVs and EV, capability, and the dealer can either be bought out or make those changes, make those investments to move forward. Production and batteries, wireless charging.
Okay, that's mine too, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I was busy. Don't look for much next month. This one was interesting because I was trying to understand it. A friend of Caleb and mine has launched a business based on wireless charging as well. And the same technology that he's using is for wireless charging for vehicles. And he has a second division, which is wirelessly charging for your pacemaker. So he's doing both. The thing that was interesting about this was this article that the link has down here in the bottom talks about why is it efficient to do wireless charging versus conductive charging. And it has to do with the systems in the vehicle become simpler. And so you have less places with losses, even though the transfer of the energy itself is a bit more efficient. When you look at the devices you have to go through to condition the electricity inside the vehicle, you get more and more losses. And yet when you do it through a magnetic field, what you get is a magnetic field on the other side. And the immediate thing you get is electricity in the form that you want because your magnetic field matches with the magnetic field on the other side.
So you would do wireless only manufacturing, and then you'd gain that advantage. Like say you manufacture a bunch of school buses that are only charged wirelessly.
You would, so part of what this article is saying, will vehicles move away from conductive to wireless? Because when you come into the garage and you park, it's like my inductive range. You park the car over the space, it recognizes the car is there, let me charge it up. You could even do this, and they've actually done a prototype on a highway for about a mile in Germany. You could be charging the car as you're driving down the highway. Now, who's going to pay for the energy that you're pumping into your car? I don't know. With inductive, you can keep moving and still be getting a charge as you're moving.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be prohibitively expensive to do that to highways?
Probably. Nobody said that, this had to do with feasibility, not the value. However, in the case of in your home, as far as I can tell, the cost of the inductive charger on the floor in your garage would be no different than the cost of the charge station that you currently might put in. The thing that surprised me was the size of the air gap did not make a significant difference.
I'm surprised by these efficiency numbers. Yeah. This is interesting because it's like the efficiency numbers are about the same, but it feels like in some future time when all agree that like if you're buying a car and you have a dedicated spot for that car, you might as well, maybe there are two cars you could buy. One would be the wireless version and the other would be the conductive version or something.
Yeah, you saw earlier today, I sent something for discussion next meeting, which was an article that talked about that it's very likely that when we start buying cars in the future, we're going to specify more what we want our car to do. And we'll be using a different battery technology. We'll be using a different charging technology based on our lifestyle versus somebody else's lifestyle. So it's going to become a differentiated market.
I read that and thought the 80-20 rule will be true. Like 80% of us won't need the same car. Yay, we got to the humor section.
This is what I put in. So a while back, was it Uber started sending out notifications about how to open a Tesla car door because it is not necessarily obvious for many folks. Great design.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've had to tell people how to get in, but also to get out. You know,
I actually was at a
That was the
drive-through
one that
once and I
scared
had
me,
someone
to get
ask
out.
me how they open, how the door works, because it brings up some curiosity.
yeah.
I'm surprised so far, and I'm sure it'll show up eventually. Because you look at all the warnings you get when you buy a ladder. Somebody brought that up the other day. You buy a ladder, there's a warning about don't use it near high tension wires, don't use it while you're in the pool. Uh, I'm surprised there's not a label in the Tesla that says, in case of emergency, this is where the door handle is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it has the mechanical one. But then it tells you, don't use that.
Yeah, well, the funny thing was my friend Raj has had his Tesla now for over a year, and he just discovered the mechanical one.
Good thing he didn't go over a bridge and into the water. Times that you need to know. Yeah.
And for some intentional humor, the Onion had a little article, which is satire about where Americans explain why they prefer gas over electric cars. A couple of quotes that were rather funny, I thought. I think we're rushing in before we even really know what electricity is. My gas car can go forward and reverse. Can electric cars do that? Gas has more protein. So for more humorous things like that, go check out that link on the Onion.
There was also a recent story that came across my desk, just chime in real quick, that was all about the olfactory, nostalgic olfactory attraction of gasoline, and actually coming up with like perfumes or like things to give you that gas smell that some people associate and sort of like with gas cars. So anyway, if I can dig that up, maybe I'll share that around.
As I say, if
Woody is
anybody's
not
ever
that.
had a,
Yeah, go ahead, Caleb. Yeah.
I was gonna say, anybody who's ever ridden or driven an old Volkswagen Beetle, what's the first thing you think of?
The vinyl smell.
Yeah, that
Like,
smell. Yeah,
you
it's like
need
plastic and
all that
gas.
vinyl aftershave and gas aftershave.
But I think the part that's not funny about this was one of the factories that Caleb and I don't know if you worked in the Indiana factory. I worked in the Indiana factory. Guys are manufacturing the electric trucks and buses. And they go, they're not going to sell. And you say, well, why? They don't make enough noise. They were so disappointed that they were quiet. They go, and then they go up to one of the vehicles they're building and they go, vroom, vroom. He says, this is what people want.
Well,
I believe the fragrance you're referring to, and I put that in the chat, is the Ford Mustang Mach-U as a fragrance of the gasoline smell.
gas perfume. There you go. That's great. Why does VW vinyl smell different from all other vinyl?
It's the VOCs. I imagine it's got some sort of chemical half-life that keeps pumping out of it.
It's made from a carcinogenic.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we've got. I'm committed to finishing on time, and we've got 6 minutes. We had a couple ideas beyond news that were kind of related to just kind of an announcement that we're working on the website and improving it. We've added resources, and I've got a list of other resources we can add to the resources page. Cecilia, was there anything that we wanted to specifically kind of call out or share?
Yeah, just on the homepage, we've actually added explaining a little bit about us, and then also on the I think on the meetings page we made some improvements there to make it a little easier to find the Zoom link button. And yeah, so like, as you said, we did add some resources, including some some good stuff that good stuff, good resources, and you'll be adding more because there's always like new stuff to add. Nothing really particular to say about that, but you can filter by those resources on the resource page. Find particular kinds of resources.
We're applying tags to the resources, etc. Woody, did you have a comment?
I think I do. If you're asking about potential presentations for the next meeting,
Oh, I was
is that
just
what you're?
no, I wasn't asking that question. Hold that thought 1 second.
Okay.
We were going to use the presentation time to talk about the website a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Go to the next meeting after that.
Okay.
Jerry?
I just wanted to ask the question of everybody. Would you guys raise your hands? Who's gone to the new website and played around and gone through various things? Yeah, okay. So absolutely go there, because all of the stuff that we communicate about in email else.
So yeah, in addition, we've got resources by category in this area, and I think that there's a way that we can keep building this up to make sure that it's also a benefit to anyone you talk to, so that they can kind of get their questions answered, etc.
The other thing to question is for all of us, if you think of something else that ought to be on the website, or a reference that ought to be through the website, hey, send it in to NBEAA-web at googlegroups.com. And we'll start adding those things. I mean, it really is, I can even do the editing. So it's pretty easy to make the changes and work things out. And eventually, we're hoping that Cecilia is also going to modify our DNS so we can stop using email through googlegroups.com. Instead, we're going to send our email to discuss@nbaa.org and team@nbaa.org and blah, blah, blah. So it'll be a lot easier for you to guess who you want to communicate with.
Yep. What else? Let me go back to the slides. I think we are interested in talking about next meetings and presentations, Woody. We're very interested. Do we have an idea?
Well, yeah. So the governor has until the end of this month to sign all the legislation on his desk. And so there are several EV related bills. And so I could give a report out on California legislature and the bills that passed. And also, I haven't heard any conversation about Prop 30 that is currently on the California ballot for this November, which is specifically focused on advancing electric vehicles, particularly for low income folks. So I could do a presentation on that, unless there's already been some kind of, so yeah, so Prop 30 and state legislation.
That would be great. I think if you don't think that that's a full presentation, Woody, we could combine it with, something else, but otherwise we could just focus in on it.
Well, I don't know how long is a full presentation?
Half hour or more.
Yeah, I mean, so it depends on how deep folks want to get into it in the Q&A. I mean, I could present on the legislative stuff in about probably like 10 or 15 minutes, and then there'd be Q&A, and Prop 30 probably roughly the same, I guess. Yeah, 10 minutes on that, and then Q&A. So I think it might be a full presentation.
That sounds great. Thanks for volunteering.
The other presentation thing isn't really a presentation, but something that we talked about in the past. And a friend of mine asked me the other day if she wanted to go buy a vehicle. And she said, "Oh, you know about EVs, what should I look for?" I still think a meeting where we have a collaborative one where we talk about what do you look at when you're buying an EV? What are the key features that are differentiated for you versus somebody else? There's not a right, when I keep trying to tell people there's not a right EV, there's a right EV for you. But what are the factors that make a difference?
Well, of course, the main thing is finding one that goes forward and reverse, right?
Yep.
Well, that really limits it quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think we should do that in November, Jerry, and it should be about the right EV for you. I like that languaging, and it could be, let's build a page on the site that references that. info.
Well, I had to be November because I think I'm gonna be on a plane coming back from Rome on the meeting for November. Bad timing.
Let's put it on October, if we have time, and do less news. We've covered the news pretty well lately. Does that sound good? It'll be the second topic, depending on how many questions we have on the first topic. Brad?
Yeah, I was just going to play off what Jerry said. I would love, and this is the reason I've been pushing to have a vehicle dealer, used vehicle dealer that specialized in electric vehicles, because it would be great to have a referral for all those kinds of people who would basically just walk them through the process and wouldn't be tied to any one particular manufacturer.
Maybe we should ask RCU to come talk to us at some point. In the past, we hadn't been that interested in focusing in on any particular dealers, but RCU is not, they're a little different in a couple ways. So think about it. I think that brings us to the end of our meeting slides, and I think we're kind of wound down. Any last thoughts or comments? Great. Well, thanks all. Thanks for your flexibility on August, and I think this is an overwhelming time for me. I think the information's coming in really fast and furious, but that's good in a way. Yeah.
Thanks, Sonia. Thanks all.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Sonia.
Bye.
Jerry, you're on mute.
Many thanks.
Okay, you want to stop the recording?